Check that out for yield, would you? Can't get too much better than that. Oh guys, things have got a bit nasty since we last saw it. Ewes are looking happy. Cattle over there somewhere, wherever they are, they're looking happy. That ain't looking very bloody happy. We don't run massies, what the hell's going on here? Poor old TM's had to go back to town. She's shadow hydraulic pump, we think. Yeah, we put 25 grand to that thing in the spring, and that's going to be another 5 or 6 at least, I'm guessing. Yeah, starting to get a wee bit fed up with that. Just have to wait and see what happens. Literally just shifted the turtles again. Thought I'd take this time to do a bit of education on what's going on here. We're being told by our regional council that we need to graze these girls downhill, which is what we're doing. This was based on research done with dairy cattle, and don't get me wrong, with cattle it works. It's absolutely, it works. It well and truly does the job. Problem is with sheep, so cattle eat under the wire. They're not standing on what they're eating. Doesn't look very much here as though these girls are staying off what they're eating. They walk all over it, and there's really no other option. Doesn't matter how you do it, they have to stand on what they're eating because they've got a heap of wool on them. It's an insulator. You try and get them to eat under the wire and they will break out. Now what happens here is this. Not very happy about this. I hate to admit this, but I did this as a bit of an experiment this year. So we'd expect to waste 20 to 25% of our crop. We've probably got 40 to 45% of it left in there, in that break. I'll go back and clean some of it up, don't get me wrong. We budget to have extra feed for winter. These crops aren't cheap to grow, and we want to get the most out of them. So we graze uphill, which I will show you in that mob over there. These girls are shifted a day early. Well, don't get me wrong, the other mob is still going to be muddy, but it's really frustrating when councils start trying to bring in these rules. And they're not making this a rule, they're making it a very strong recommendation. We've done some work around ways to get the best of both worlds. They've sort of listened a bit, but they're not backing down from recommending grazing downhill. So what happens is you get a heap of rain. We've had 1.5 inches of rain the last 2 days. It falls on these breaks. Now when they get muddy like this, the water doesn't go into the soil, it runs off, which is part of the problem, don't get me wrong. But where does it run off to? It runs downhill. It runs onto the next break. Now we had a dry enough night last night, so this break's going to be okay. But this break's had the rain on it too. So what happens is essentially, this gets its rainfall, but it runs off that. This gets twice the rainfall on it that it should have had. And then it turns to absolute crap, and you wind up wasting well over half your crop that you've spent a lot of money trying to grow. And the whole idea of it is to be able to feed your stock properly over winter. The first thing is that we need to be able to feed these girls. All other welfare issues are serious concerns, but if we can't feed them, there's no point worrying about the rest, because that is the biggest welfare issue. Anyway, I'll show you the next paddock. So don't get me wrong, it still looks muddy out there, and it is, but the Swedes aren't buried. It's sort of hard to make out on video. And these girls, like, obviously haven't shifted them yet, I'm about to, but they're quite happy. They're slowly coming up to say good day, but the turtles were trying to break through the fence as soon as I got there. It's yeah, it certainly makes a big difference. And these have got a vague skin of mud on them, whereas the other ones were caked in it. Sort of, camera's not really doing it justice. Anyway, there's a lot of white stuff left in here. These will clean up real easy, and they'll go back and eat them straight away. This is only a 3-day break, 2.5 maybe, so I'm hoping with some good weather, because these girls are getting shifted a day early, they'll go back and clean some of this up too. You can sort of see it in there. It's just barely muddy on the bulbs, whereas the other paddock, it was just caked. Here's a better view when we're looking at it with the sun behind us. You can actually see there's a lot of wee specks of white in here. Now these girls have eaten a lot more than the other mob. There's a lot less left behind, which is probably why they weren't so hungry. The other ones were bloody ravenous coming through. But I'll just see if I can zoom in here. See all the little bits of white? That's because there's just barely a skin of mud over it, and as much as we don't want them to, they were still eating that. Anyway, gist of it is, this is a lot better than grazing downhill, because yeah, it just is. You don't get that runoff going on to the next break. And also the sheep tend to camp up the top a little bit better. They just seem to sit down up there, whereas where they're eating, whereas with the other one they're walking down for a graze, and then they're walking back to the top of the hill, walking down to graze again, walking back up to the top of the hill to sleep, which is what sheep do. It seems a bit silly really, but it actually has its advantages. So anyway, that's a little bit of a rant from me. Hope it wasn't too boring for you. There's the wee hoggets making their way back on. And let them off. At night, just because of the shit weather, there's a wee bit of a wet paddock there, so we're just being mindful of that. They're doing pretty well. They're pretty happy, but this is their 5th time coming off, so they'll be well and truly transitioned. Be like dairy cows going on to fodder beat. Oh no! Oh no! We're back in a messy again. Hey, could be worse. Could be a bloody John Deere. These little guys have no clue what's happening here yet. Standing on the wrong side of the brake. Next one will be the same. G'day Ted. 3rd time they'll start to work it out. 4th time they'll be trying to push the bloody fence down in front of me. Oh, the peace and quiet. Just plodding along. Look, there's no wires here. The sheep aren't coming through yet. Give them time. Yeah, there's quite a bit left here, as you can see. Not really worried about it. It's their first break. They're hoggets. They've never seen these things before. And they've been off 5 times because of weather and transition. I've had a guts full of hunting them on and off. I think they've had a guts full of it, so we'll just give them a fresh break. We'll be right for a few days. Saves having to worry about doing it tomorrow before discussion group too. Oh, this might be quick. This might be a record here. Dad. Yes, Ted. What are you doing up there, Ted? Please don't do that. Oh, 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 look at this, look at this, look at this. They're like, oh, there's no fence there. Ignore the boys, they're trying to kill each other in there. They'll be right. Wow. I might only get the 2nd time nice and quiet this time. 3rd time they might be blowing the fence down on me. Wow. The things we do at discussion group, eh? This is how we feed our bailage. Whoops. Ah. There's one way to do it. Well, after discussions on Twitter last night, the night before, I thought I'd better do this. Thanks Bruce for giving me the courage to do it. These are our calves on Swedes. We didn't let them off. They were here over all the rain. As you can see here, she's a bit muddy. I would call that. They might have gone in. Where are we? Way down there. They might have gone in maybe 2 inches, 3 inches. They're on pretty heavy crop here. We walk back just over this way and we're on top of the ground again. We're not sinking in at all, like it's solid. It's a bit sloppy, as Bruce said, tacky. It's dry. Like, we look at the animals, there's a wee bit of mud on them. Yeah, don't get me wrong. They love rubbing around the hay feeder. The hay feeder's always muddy because they poke the crap out of the ground around that. We shift it every time we put new bale in, but these guys only get a bale every 3 or 4 days. There's just not the numbers here. Like shit, I've got 27 cattle in this mob and 21 on the other side. So they're not going to make mud. They do make mud. They're not going to make super deep mud though. Like, yeah, they're small animals and they're not in big mobs, but they do still have pretty high stock density. Like I say, look at this. Solid as. Boot print, didn't even go in. So yeah, they make a bit of mud where they graze in wet weather. Nothing serious, and they've still got the dry area to lie down. It might not seem overly dry when it's raining, because obviously it's raining. That said, it's just a bit of a skin on top. It's not like they're sitting in a running bloody river or anything. What else have I got to say about it? We don't back fence here. We've got tiny mobs with a big long face, and like this is it. They're getting to that next row. That's it. That's all they get a day. That's it. The reason we don't back fence is because we probably only shift it once a month, because it's only moving 10-15 metres a month. It's just all the other ones only moving about 6 metres a month. It's not moving very much at all. So yeah, there's no need there. That said, if you've got mobs of 100 cows or something on Swedes, beet, kale, whatever, it's a good idea. I'm not against it at all. I just struggle to see a benefit here for us. We back fence them into that, they're going to make it worse. We give them that stuff back there, yeah, it gives them somewhere dry to sit. Did see the neighbour last year, they were back fencing their heifers. They had a really good idea. It was really bad weather forecast. We actually took all that stock off crop. They pulled the back fences down. Hey? Yeah, I know, it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? But it did, because the ground was nice and dry in the area they had fenced off. So their heifers stayed on crop. It was only mobs of 50 or 60 on beat. They were happy as hell. They had a flax hedge to go and hide behind on the south side of them, so protected from the evil southerly coming through. And it worked bloody brilliantly, I thought. Shit, that was a great idea. We don't have a lot of shelter on this farm, but we have natural shelter from hills. We have lots of banks, gullies, bits and pieces, but we don't have a lot of tree shelter. There's a couple of shelter belts going up this winter that, if I get my tractor back, that you'll see in videos later on. That said, we're primarily sheep, which brings up another issue because sheep carry their shelter on their backs. They usually got about 2.5 to 3 inches of wool on their backs right now, which yeah, it's awesome shelter. That it's warm, it's water repellent. It's pretty cool. It does get a wee bit muddy, I will admit, but nothing too serious, because yeah, if it's going to get that bad, they won't be on sweets. We'll have let them off. I know, guys, it's a bit of a controversial subject, this. Basically, if we can't do this winter cropping, we can't feed our stock well. We live in Southland. It is a wet enough area in the winter. If we don't do this, we've got to go to sheds. Sheds bring a whole other range of issues. I'm not saying they're bad. There's some good operators out there. I just don't know that actually having to put stock in sheds, let's put it this way, bad operators with sheds will be worse than bad operators in crop. There will be all hell to pay if that happens. There's the water trough, looks a bit sloppy around there. Just go in there. Once again, not portable, I know, because look at this. Whoops, slippery. Watching. Rock the whole way around it. So this won't get any worse for the whole winter. They've already made it as bad as it's going to be. Yeah, we all have different ways of doing things. As long as they work, they work. There's some bad apples still out there, don't get me wrong, but not many these days. Yeah, as we walk through here, see them nice and happy, healthy ewes, bit of mud on them, as I said. Doesn't really matter. We'll keep them nice and warm. Keeps them quite cool in the sun too, funnily enough. Yeah, you can see there's not much here, but further over by the fence you can see there's a bit there. Just the whole way around, down the bottom. They can spend a day cleaning this up, including the stuff on the break up the top, which I'll show you in a second. Here's the break they're on now. They went onto here 2 days ago. 2 days ago, that was when I took that footage in the mud on that last break. Why is feed the single most important thing for animal welfare? Yeah, I know that can be a bit of a challenge. People might say, oh well, keeping them out of the mud is more important. It's, yeah, this isn't where we made the mud, to be fair. Back down there is, head down that way. 2 things. One, these animals, they use feed to keep warm. They've got all that wool on their backs, it's a great insulator. They need to eat to keep their body temperature up. So if they don't eat, they get cold. They get cold, they don't put on any weight, they start losing weight, things aren't good. Second thing is, feeding ewes is the single most important factor with lamb survival. Now, we don't feed these girls properly, so here we go, here's where we made the mud. It's had a day of drying. Yesterday was a reasonable day. Obviously the day before it was raining. It's a bit sticky, like put your hand on it, push down hard, yeah, that's what you're getting. It's not mud, it's wet soil. Back to the story, yeah, lamb survival. So the better we feed the ewes, not so much with the singles, but we only get about 20% singles, the rest are twins and triplets. The more we feed the ewes, the bigger the lambs get inside the ewes. Now, like I say, singles, that can cause trouble. Twins, the bigger the birth rate, the better the hot chance of survival. Same with triplets. Better the condition of the ewe and the better feeding of the ewe at lambing, the better they milk. The better they milk, the more likely the lamb is to survive. So it's not just about the ewes, it's about the lambs in the spring. We can ensure a lot better survival of the whole picture by feeding them like this. Now if we go to all grass wintering, we can reduce our stocking rate. That has some pretty serious consequences. That can have massive issues on summer feed quality, which can then make your ewes get light because they're eating rough feed. You've got to have enough stock to control the quality of feed on your farm. We could do some dairy grazing. It's not for me. We're too steep for dairy grazing out there. It just knocks the hills around too much on these heavy soils. So that's not an option for us. We don't want to go that way. The few cattle we have already we think do enough damage. So this is what we do. We winter our ewes on crops. This way we can feed them enough to ensure decent lamb survival, as good as we possibly can. There's other factors too. We're working on shelter, as I said earlier on. Yeah, but that's why we do it. It's not about making money. It does make us money. I'm not going to deny that it does. But it's not all about making money. It's about lamb survival. Bloody old nighttime checks, eh? Ah, girls. Lucky on that one. Could have been a breakout somewhere. Righto guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.